My name is Jake Butler, and welcome to my last review of the semester where I'll be talking about The Matrix. The Matrix was released on March 31st, 1999, and was directed by the then Wachowski brothers, now the Wachowski sisters, and it stars Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Hugo Weaving. The film follows Neo as he is shown the truth of his reality and enters into the war against artificial intelligence. Now, if you threw a rock into a crowd of people on the street, it's almost certain you'd hit someone who's at least heard of The Matrix. The film was a game changer for the film industry, and particularly the science fiction genre. The Matrix created a cultural shift that echoed through every medium. I'll talk about the implications this film made on our world, but first, as always, I want to talk about its technical merits. Now, right off the bat, the Wachowskis took great care in making sure that when this film started, the viewer would be able to tell that something was off about this world without giving away the big reveal. Mainly, the world just didn't seem very inhabited. The scope of our point of view didn't go too far beyond our main characters. This made the world seem very small. The streets seemed too devoid of civilians, and all of the scenes that included lots of extras were indoors, as if they were carefully planned. The worldview was just very small. Of course, this all changed once the truth about Neo's reality was revealed. The Wachowskis are very particular about the way their films look. This is exemplified in what I personally think is one of the coolest looking films, Speed Racer from 2008. The unique visual details of Speed Racer are evolutions of the style that the Wachowskis created in The Matrix. This includes super saturated colors and inventive visual effects, the most notable of which is the bullet time effect from The Matrix. And while the effects in The Matrix are creative and interesting, there's a particular element of the film's visuals that's more subtle, and it helps create the world of the film, and that's color. Now, Speed Racer used very bright, flashy neon colors, and while The Matrix isn't as flashy, it is very saturated. This film actually has two very distinct color palettes. These color palettes are meant to help the viewer distinguish between The Matrix and the quote-unquote real world. Now, the real world is very gray and very blue, and that is, of course, meant to reflect the dreary and miserable state of the Earth towards the end of the 22nd century. Everything is, of course, much darker, but at the same time, it's almost clear. It's as if The Matrix has this subtle haze to it, and once you come back to the real world, that haze is gone. Inside The Matrix, however, everything is extremely green. Pretty much every frame that takes place in The Matrix has this green tint to it. This, of course, mirrors the green code that visualizes The Matrix from the outside, but it represents more than that. The shade of green they used is kind of a gross slime green. It's meant to make the viewer feel a little sick to the stomach. This sick feeling parallels the feeling that Neo felt at the beginning of the film. It's just enough to let you know that something's wrong. It's subtle, and some may not even notice it, but once you do, it's hard to not see that greenness in your mind. Okay, I wanted to keep the technical talk brief because what I really wanted to talk about for this film was the implication on the way we see our world today. And I was really excited to review this film because I get to talk about epistemology. Now, while this film was making an entire generation question their own existence, it didn't actually break any new philosophical ground. It just presented it to us in a medium that would reach more people around the world. The ideas posited by this film are part of a Cartesian philosophy called cogito ergo sum. If you've never heard of this, don't worry. You've probably heard of its rough English translation into the phrase, I think, therefore I am. Descartes wrote about this dictum in his Discourse on the Method. To understand this philosophy, first you need to ask yourself a question that Morpheus asked Neo in the film. How do you define real?
What is real? How do you define real?
The subjectivity of reality is all rooted in this idea that your senses can deceive you. Descartes posited that there is no way to know for certain that the world around you isn't just projections of your mind. So how would you define real? Is it what you can see? What you can touch? All of these functions are just chemical reactions in your brain.
If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
So what's to say that these reactions don't actually require external stimuli? Your brain could have just created this reality around you to simulate your entire life. Now, the parallels to Cartesian epistemology actually go a step further. Descartes posited that if your senses were really deceiving you, it could be the work of some malevolent demon that is presenting your mind with illusions to trick you into believing the world around you is real. We see this play out with the evil demon role being filled by the artificial intelligence that has harvested the biological energy from humans and created the matrix to placate human minds. Descartes also makes some claims about a truthful God, clearly mirrored by Neo, who is an obvious second coming of Christ allegory. More interestingly, however, the conclusion that Descartes ultimately came to was one not represented by Neo or by Morpheus or any of our protagonists, but instead by one of the antagonists, Joe Pantoliano's Cypher. Now, we initially meet Cypher as one of Morpheus's team members, someone who took the red pill and was shown the truth about the Matrix. But after 9 years of fighting in this miserable dystopian future, he betrays Morpheus's team and agrees to help the agents with the condition that once he was finished, they would wipe his memory of the Matrix and let him live his life in ignorance. Now, the conclusion that Descartes came to was that there was only one thing that we can know for certain. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. If my senses really are deceiving me, then I can't really be sure that anything in the universe is real except for myself. I exist. If there really is some sort of malevolent being deceiving me, then I have to exist in order to be deceived. There has to be a thinking conscious that can be tricked. If I can think and experience these senses, then I have to exist. But if I exist and my reality doesn't, if it's just a simulated world, then what's the point of anything? Why do anything if it's not real? This form of existential nihilism is called Cartesian doubt, and it's exactly what Cypher wants to get rid of. Cypher would rather live his life in a fake reality that seems just as real to him as the real world is. He's choosing the reality of a functioning human society over the reality of a bleak dystopian future. And can you really blame him? The Matrix is just as real to him as the outside world, so why not stay there? And how do you know that you haven't made the exact same decision? You can't ever even begin to know what your right answer is until you ask yourself, how do you define real? And that concludes my thoughts on The Matrix. Thank you.
Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.